All right, everybody. Welcome. Second episode of Hawk Droppings in 2 days. So I'm going to do something a little different here. I'm going to do a Trump trial update. Today was day one. We're going to cover everything that happened. I'm probably going to do these as often as I can, but I'm going to do them on the podcast page as Coffee with Hawk episodes, because those tend to be 20 to 30 minute long episodes anyway. But I'm going to do the first one as a Hawk Droppings just so that everybody can hear it, because the audio for this one is free for everyone. And so just give everybody an idea of what I'm going to be shooting for with these trial updates. So we'll do the first one today. Today's Monday, April 15th. As a Hawk Droppings, and then I'm going to do a Coffee with Hawk after this as well. So today was day one of Donald Trump's criminal trial. The first time in the history of the United States that a former president has been put on trial for criminal charges. Always a first with this guy. So today, there are about 500 jurors, potential jurors, showed up to the courthouse in Manhattan, and they were going to start jury selection. However, they started the day. They still had some pretrial evidentiary issues to deal with. So we're going to talk about that for a minute. And those are typically referred to as motions in limine. It just means pretrial motions. A lot of times there will be issues with specific pieces of evidence or lines of questioning or specific witnesses that one side or the other wants to preclude from being shown to the jury. And so we had 3 or 4 of those things today. And so I'll talk about this. You know, every state has what's called a code of civil procedure, and that's like the rule books, the rule guide. You know, every state has criminal procedure or penal code. Every state has an evidence code as well. And so when you're talking about pretrial motions, you're talking about the evidence code. And everything that they talked about today falls within California law. It falls under what we call Evidence Code Section 352. And Evidence Code 352 deals with, I spoke about this a little bit in a TikTok earlier today. Evidence Code 352 deals with whether or not a specific piece of evidence, it balances whether it's probative or whether it's prejudicial, or does the prejudicial effect of a piece of evidence outweigh its probative value, or vice versa. And so let me give you an example of that. One piece of evidence, one fact that was excluded from trial today was the fact that during the pretty much year-long, allegedly, relationship that Donald Trump had with Karen McDougal, former Playboy model, that relationship allegedly lasted about a year. And during that year, Melania Trump was pregnant with their son, Barron Trump. And the defense wanted to preclude any reference during the trial that that alleged relationship took place while Melania Trump was pregnant. So first you got to look at does it have probative value as it relates to the allegations in the case? Does it potentially have a prejudicial effect or impact? Does the prejudicial effect, could that outweigh its probative value? And anytime you're talking about evidence, the starting point is the only evidence that is admissible at trial is evidence that is relevant. How do you know if a piece of evidence is relevant? Well, the allegations in the case, does it tend to make them more likely or less likely true? Is it, as it relates to the charges in the case, is it evidence which benefits the prosecution's arguments, or is it exculpatory for the defense? The fact that Melania Trump was pregnant has no probative value whatsoever in this case. None of the charges hinge on whether she was pregnant or not. So it's not relevant. So it can be tossed aside and kept out of evidence just on that basis alone. But if you're going to look at it through the lens of the probative versus prejudicial effect, clearly that has the potential to be massively prejudicial to Donald Trump in the eyes of the jury. Not only did this guy cheat on his wife and then pay that woman off, he cheated on his wife with this woman while his wife was pregnant with their unborn son. It's got some shock value to it. So the potential prejudicial effect is pretty sky high. And so that piece of evidence is out. A couple more pieces of evidence that were dealt with. The Access Hollywood tape, the grab him by the pussy tape. The judge ruled that the audio and the video of that tape is excluded. So prosecution can't play that tape for the jury, but they can use a transcript of what Donald Trump said in that tape, in that recording. So his words will come in, but not the video or the audio of that, because it's prejudicial. It's relevant, but there's some prejudicial potential there. Also out is Donald Trump's, the audio and the video of Donald Trump's deposition that he gave in the E. Jean Carroll case, where he spoke at great length about the Access Hollywood tape. But again, prosecution can use the transcript of that deposition. And what's different between the difference between those two things, the Access Hollywood tape and Donald Trump's deposition in the E. Jean Carroll case, his deposition, he was under oath. And typically, prior sworn statements by a defendant or a party to a case are almost always admissible at trial. Another thing that's out, because it's hearsay, it's rumors, any other unsubstantiated allegations against Donald Trump for sexual assault, sexual harassment, anything like that. He's got like 25 or 30 other women who have credibly accused him of sexual assault or sexual battery. None of that information is going to be admissible because, again, it doesn't have anything to do with any of the elements of any of the charges in this case. This criminal case involves consensual relationships. It does not involve sexual assault, sexual battery, sexual harassment. So those are not relevant to the facts of the current trial. One piece of evidence that is admissible during trial is the relationship that Donald Trump had over the years, going back to 2015, the relationship that he had with the National Enquirer and David Pecker, their CEO. And specifically that Trump was coordinating with David Pecker throughout 2015 and 2016 to encourage and to plant stories in the National Enquirer that were negative or derogatory towards other Republicans that Donald Trump was campaigning against in the GOP primary. Remember that the National Enquirer famously published a story during the GOP primary that Rafael Ted Cruz's father was involved in the assassination of JFK, that kind of thing. They were coordinating with Trump and his campaign and planting those kinds of stories. And that is relevant here because that goes to the campaign finance violation aspect of things, the campaign interference, election interference aspect of things, undue benefits to Donald Trump's campaign that violated campaign finance laws, things along those lines, which is what these payments to these two women was. It was campaign finance violations. And so there was that. Donald Trump moved to be able to add questions to the jury questionnaire. The judge denied that. I think there are 42 questions already, and we'll talk about that here in a couple of minutes. One interesting thing. Now, I had seen it reported before today that court was going to be in session Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. They were going to be dark on Wednesdays, meaning not in session. Judge Mershon today said Wednesdays are back on the table. And so from what I understand at this point is the trial's going to be going on 5 days a week, which I think is great. It'll speed things up. Donald Trump again made a motion for Judge Mershon to recuse himself. The judge refused to do that, yada, yada, yada. The prosecution did make a motion for Donald Trump to be held in contempt of court for violating the judge's gag order in this case, for attacking witnesses. And while they were in court today, before jury selection started, because before jury selection started, Donald Trump was at the table and could still have his phone because the jury was out of the courtroom. He reposted a video from one of his particularly whack job lunatic supporters, a woman from Florida named Laura Loomer, who posted a video attacking Judge Mershon's wife. And Donald Trump reposted that video while court was going on today, while they were discussing Trump's violations of the gag order in this case. He did that. So the prosecution made their motion to hold Trump in contempt. They want him fined $1,000 for every violation, which, okay, whatever. The judge is going to rule on that. I think he set it for a hearing on April 24th. He's going to give the defense an opportunity to respond in writing to that. He'll probably let the prosecution submit a written brief on that issue as well. And so about right around noon today, and I've been fortunate to come across some new nicknames for Donald Trump: Grandpa Touchy, Pervert Hoover. That's a particular favorite. That was my friend, Mrs. Misanthrope. Pervert Hoover. I love that one so much. That's so funny. About shortly after noon, East Coast time, he fell asleep at counsel table. He was sitting at counsel table. He fell asleep. His head fell forward, and his jaw was hanging open. He was slack-jawed, drooling, sleeping at counsel table, which is funny from a guy who keeps calling Joe Biden Sleepy Joe Biden. Trump actually fell asleep during his criminal trial. Amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So the judge is going to rule on that. And then Judge Mershon started going through some rules and instructions for the parties and attorneys. And during that section of the day, he spoke directly to Donald Trump, and he said, "You are ordered to be here every single day. And if there is a day that you do not show up, I will have you arrested." Yeah. Imagine how well that went over with Fat Nixon, right? I mean, come on. And so they were doing that kind of stuff throughout the morning. And, then they got to the lunch break, and the judge informed everybody in the courtroom. He was like, "Well, the jury's been waiting all morning on you people. They've broken for lunch, so we're done until 1:30. When we come back at 1:30, the jurors are coming in." And so they came back at 1:30. They had 500 people, potential jurors, report for jury duty. They brought the first group of 96 into the courtroom. And so procedurally, here's how this works. The judge brings everybody in, all 96 of them. They find their spots to sit in the courtroom. And this jury is being kept largely anonymous. So they all have numbers. And when that first jury pool comes in, they all stand up. The court clerk says, "Raise your hand," and she swears them in. Here's the importance of that, because that 42 question questionnaire, the judge is doing that orally with like the first group of 12 or 18 as they go up into the box. They are answering those questions under oath. I've gotten a lot of questions on some of my TikTok videos. Well, what if somebody lies during the voir dire process, during the jury selection process, and they lie so that they can get on the jury and throw a monkey wrench into this whole thing? Can they get in trouble? Yes, they can. That's perjury. That is perjury. They can be prosecuted for it. They can be held in contempt. They can be fined by the judge. They can be put in jail overnight or 2 overnights if they're caught doing that. So they are under oath when they are answering these questions. And if they lie, that's perjury. So And well, I'll come back to that. But then, of course, after lunch, the defense made a flurry of motions to try to continue the trial, have it dismissed, blah, 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 blah. Just a whole bunch of bullshit, all of which was dismissed. The judge reiterated that the jurors' names are going to be protected. The defense is not allowed to even write their names down on another piece of paper. They can't copy the juror lists that they get. They can't duplicate them. They have to turn them back into the court at the end of every day. They can't take them outside of the courtroom. And while all of this was going on, I talked about this briefly in a TikTok as well. A Fox News sports personality named Clay Travis, who started some sports website that was bought by Fox News, and he's super MAGA. I mean, he's a total chud. He tweeted or put out on Truth Social, whatever, that every MAGA supporter in Manhattan needs to do anything and everything that they can to get on that jury so that they can vote not to convict Donald Trump, regardless of what the evidence at trial shows. And that doing so would be standing up to the deep state and would be a deep act of patriotism, regardless of what the evidence at trial shows. So he's encouraging people to commit perjury and lie to get onto a jury. He's tampering with the jury right now by putting that out there. He's encouraging the jury, again, unjustly to, create a mistrial, a hung jury, or jury nullification. And it's like, it never ceases to amaze me, the shit that these people put out in public with their full chest and sign their name to it. And just expect, like, that's fine. That's fine. That's okay. That's totally reasonable way to behave. That's potentially a criminal offense, what he did, which several commenters pointed out, and several people in the response tagged the office of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg in hopes that he sees Mr. Travis's tweet. So it was about 2:30 p.m. today, court's in session till 4:30 or 5. So we got all the way to 2:30 until that first 96 member jury pool was sworn in. And then, so what happens at that point? Everybody, all 96 people get sworn in, they take a seat. And then everybody at prosecution table stands up, everybody at defense table stands up, and they turn and they face all the potential jurors in the room. The judge introduces everybody. And, because when it's your turn to get up in the box and answer questions, the judge will ask you, do you, apart from Trump, do you know any of these people? Have you ever interacted with, or do you have any relationship with any of these people? Because you can't have the prosecutor's poker buddy getting on the jury. And so that's one of the questions that they're going to have to be asked. One of the questions that the judge asked the entire group of 96 is there anyone here, after he told them what the case was and told them what the case was about and how the case came to be, he said, is there anyone here who does not believe that they can be impartial and fair? Is there anyone who just does not believe they can give the defendant a fair trial in this case? And remember, there were 96 people who came in the room, okay? 50 of them raised their hand. I'm not impartial. I can't be impartial. I can't follow your honor's instruction to just go by the evidence of the trial. I've already prejudged and decided this case in my head. And so those 50 people were excused. So bam, first 20 minutes, more than half of your first jury pool of 96 has already been excused and left the building. So again, they had 500 people show up, so they'll bring in another 96 tomorrow. Well, they'll go through the questioning of the remaining 46, and as those people get excused, then they'll bring in another group of 96 and start that process over with them. But, some initial takeaways. Judge Mershon is a no bullshit judge. He's not going for any of Trump's antics or, that's right, shenanigans. No shenanigans in Judge Mershon's courtroom. And Judge Mershon has sat a jury in a Trump case previously. I think it was in 2022 when the Trump organization itself was prosecuted criminally for tax and fraud violations in a jury trial. And they were found guilty on like 15 or 17 counts of criminal offenses. And Judge Mershon got a jury sat in that trial. Also in Manhattan, they've gotten 2 juries seated in both of the E. Jean Carroll trials. So it's doable. It's totally doable. I think it's just going to take a couple of weeks. This case is about much more than just business records and falsification of business records. Donald Trump paid these 2 women off to keep them from speaking to the public right before the election. And again, remember the timeline here. It was June or July of 2016 when the parent company for the National Enquirer paid off Karen McDougal, paid her $150,000, gave her 2 cover stories, gave her several articles to write under her byline. Then on October 7th, 2016 is when the Access Hollywood tape came out. And just a few days after that was when Michael Cohen paid Stormy Daniels $130,000. So only one of those 3 stories came out before the election. And could you imagine if all 3 of them had come out within the last 3 months before Election Day? That's why Donald Trump did this. It's a campaign finance case. It's an election interference case. It's a fraud. It's a cover-up case. So it's about a lot more than just falsification of business records. Trump was a mess today. I mean, he looked a mess. He was, just like hunched over and like at council table the whole time. Rage tweeting and all of that stuff. I mean, he looked like shit. His body language was horrible. He's clearly incredibly upset about being there and upset about the fact that he doesn't have a choice. I mean, the judge ordered him to be there every day or he's going to be arrested, which I thought was fantastic. This trial is going to take a while. I don't think we're going to get to opening arguments until the first week of May. I think it's going to take at least 2 weeks to get a jury seated. If today's any indication, I mean, if every 100 people come in there, it's like, how many of you guys are impartial and 50 of them hold up their hand and get excused? It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. So let's talk for a minute about how do you get on a jury like this, or how do you get off? I mean, we've already talked about how you get off of something like this, but it's not realistic in a case like this to find 12 jurors and however many alternates that have never heard anything about this case and that have never heard anything about Donald Trump. I mean, the dude's been famous for 40 years. He was president for 4. He's been talking about a stolen election for the last 4 years. Everybody in the country knows about him, and most people know at least something about this case. And so you're not going to find 12 people who are just a blank slate when it comes to those things. You're looking for people who can be fair, who can be open-minded, and who can say, I mean, obviously I'm familiar with Donald Trump, who maybe don't have strong feelings one way or the other about him. Or if they do know something about this case, they can say to the judge, no, Your Honor, I can follow your instructions. I can remain objective. I can be impartial, and I can listen to the evidence and base my decision based on the evidence and not any other preconceived notions that I have in my head. And because you're not going to find that kind of blank slate person. So they got through some of the questioning of some of the jurors today, not many. Counsel hasn't had an opportunity to question any of the jurors yet. That's going to be coming up in the coming days because the judge is going to go through all the questions on the jury questionnaire so how it works is all 96 come in, there's a jury box with 12 seats in it. The judge will call 12 people at random to go get in that box. And usually there'll be another row of 6 chairs in front of the box. And so the initial focus will be on those 18 people. And they'll start weeding down from those 18 people. And as people get excused, then they'll replace them at random with people that are still out in the gallery. And so they'll just keep going and going and going through that until there are 18 people who have satisfactorily answered all of the judge's questions. And then the prosecution gets to question those 18 people. And then the defense gets to question those 18 people. And then a bunch of them are going to get excused. And then they kind of start that process all over again. So it's going to take some time. It's going to take at least a couple of weeks to pick a jury in this case. And that about wraps it up for today. So that was day one of the first felony criminal trial of a former president of the United States ever in the history of this country. I'm planning on doing updates like this, 20, 25-minute recaps every day, depending on what happens. We'll see how jury selection goes. Jury selection can be kind of boring, but we'll play it by ear and we'll see what happens. And as I said, those daily updates after today are going to be available on our website at hawkpodcasts.com in the Coffee with Hawk episodes. So please go to our webpage and check those out. It's hawkpodcasts.com. And, if you want some Little Donnie 2 Scoops merch, you can get that also at the hawkmerchstore.com. So, all right, day one of the Trump trial is in the books. The criminal trial has started. It will be over in 2 months. And 2 months from now, right around Father's Day, Donald Trump's going to be a convicted felon. Let's visualize that. Let's bring that into existence. We'll put that out into the universe. All right. Thanks again, everybody. I will talk to you again tomorrow. And again, hawkpodcasts.com. Thanks to my brother Falcon, our buddy Wiseacre, and my buddy Anu for letting us use his music with our program. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. See you.